Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrahashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. Right now, the discussion is going on with the Vaisheshikas, who like others are also Dvaitins, for whom the creation is real. And they also analyzed and developed their prakriyas to explain the universe and knowledge, and how knowledge is the means of moksha. Among various things that they imagine is that the Atma is Savishesha. Atma possesses Visheshas, Gunas, attributes like Jnanam, Sukham, Ichha, Dvesha. So in the verse 55 to say it, Jnana Sukhadinam Atma Dinam Atma Gunatva Abhipagamena. That Jnanam, Sukham, Ichha, Dvesha, Abhipagamena. Abhipagama is arriving at accepting that Jnanam, etc., the gunas, the attributes of Atma. Atma is Dravya, like one of the 9 Dravyas. Atma is Dravya, or a substance, which is the locus of guna and kriya. So these various gunas reside in Atma. So now it was said earlier that Jnanam also is one of the gunas, and Jnanam is required to illumine anything, meaning for us to gain or get the perception of Sukham, Dukkham, Ichha, Dvesha, Jnanam is required. They are the Vishaya, the objects of Jnanam. But what happens is Jnanam is equally an attribute of Atma as Sukha Dukkha. So both of Jnanam as well as other gunas or attributes have the same locus, namely Atma. So we say, how can they enjoy the relationship of the illuminator illumined? Because the illuminator is subject, illumined is object. They should obtain different locations locuses, then only they can enjoy the relationship of illuminate. When both of them have the same locus, how can it be? How can Jnanam illumine them? Because when Sukha Dukkha is there, Jnanam is not there. When Jnanam is there, Sukha is not there. Idanim Tesham Atma Gunatmavi. This is assuming that Ichcha, Dvesha, Sukha, Dukkha, the gunas, the qualities or attributes of Atma, assuming this, it was said how the experience of Sukhi Aham, that I am happy, cannot be explained. Then Sukhadehe Natma Dharmatvam Atmanaste Vikarataha. Te Atmana Avikarataha. On one hand, here Vaisheshika, you are accepting Atma as Nirvikara. So Nirvikara Atma cannot have gunas that are vikari. Sukhadehe na Atma Dharmatvam. The first line of the verse 55, that Sukhadehe Atma Dharmatvam na sambhavati. Vedantin says that Sukha etc. cannot be possibly the dharma, the attributes of Atma. Why is it so? Atmana te avikarataha. Te means tavamate Atmana avikarata. Because you on one hand accept Atma avikarata, avikari nirvikara. Vikaritva bhavat. On one hand you say that Atma is devoid of any vikara or change or modification. Why is it so? Vibhutva angikarena nityatva abhivagaman. They say Atmas are many, countless Atmas are there, as many Upadhis are there. Each Atma is Vibhu, all pervasive. And therefore, we say that, that itself is difficult, that one Atma maintains its boundary with other Atma and both of them are all pervasive. But in any case, when you accept Atma as all pervasive, then Atma has to be Nitya or eternal. Because all pervasive means it is not confronted by anything else. So it can't be changed or modified. And it is avikara. When nirvikaratva is there, then janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, these vikaras cannot be. So mrityu also cannot be. Therefore, has to be nitya. So Atma has to be nitya because it is nirvikara. Atma has to be nitya because it is vibhu or all pervasive. Because then these gunas, sukha dukkha, they are all anitya. So nitya Atma, according to you, possesses the anitya gunas of sukha dukkha. Where is the dushtanta? Have you seen this anywhere else? That a nitya entity that is eternal, or permanent, or changeless, has gunas or attributes of changing? Ataha. So you are just saying that without any evidence for it. When you make a statement, then there should be an illustration to explain that yes, this is what happens. You can't explain this. Atana atmana gunavatva siddhi. Therefore, just by saying that Atma possesses the attributes doesn't make it so unless you can prove it or establish it logically. And logic or anumana requires drishtanta. Yatra yatra dhuma tatra tatra vanni yasa mahana. Said the drishtanta must be there. Then only when you see dhuma, then you establish there is Agni there. Dure grahya grahakatva kalpanayati. And so when Atma cannot have the gunas, then the one guna becomes grahaka of the other guna, etc. That cannot be. Then, kinche guna guninoho atyanta bhedavadinah tava. Other things they explain except or they believe that guna and gunya are totally different from each other. Like sukha is the guna. Atma is Sukhi or possessing that guna. So Guni, that is Atma, is distinct from guna of Sukha, Dukkha, Ichha, Dvesha, Jnana, etc. Asyeva Atmana Ayam Sukhadi. Now Sukha is distinct from Atma, Atma is distinct from Sukha. That means Sukha takes place. How do you establish that this Sukha belongs to this Atma? Because they are different from each other totally. So, Atyanta Bhedavadina. Sukha and Atma have no connection at all. Then how do you establish that this Sukha has, is of this Atma, belongs to this Atma? So, therefore, Bhedat. So, Guna Gunino Atyanta Bhedat. Because Guna Guni are totally distinct from each other. The Bhedat, Bheda Avisheshad Ityaksharaartha. So Anyasya Kasmat na Kanyasya Manasa Kasmat na Va. If Sukha Dukkha etc. can be the attributes of Atma, because Atma and Sukha are different, then Sukha and Mana also are different. Then why not Sukha be located in Manas also? Can be located anywhere else as long as the two locations are distinct from each other. How can you say that Sukha belongs only to Atma? That Sukha is the attribute of Atma. Even though Sukham is totally different from Atma, then Sukha is different from many other things also. In that case, Sukha can be attributed to any other thing also because they are distinct from each other. There is no what establishes that Sukha is attribute only of Atma. Even though Sukha and Atma are totally distinct from each other, why not Sukha also be attribute of Manas? They are also distinct from each other. Anyasya kasma, anyasya manasa kasmat na. If Sukha can be the guna or attribute of Atma, why cannot Sukha be the attribute of Manas also? Bheda Visheshat, because Bheda, see, understand this. Bheda or distinction between Sukha and Atma and distinction between Sukha and Manas. What is the distinction between distinction? You follow? Bheda is the same. Atma Sukha Bheda is Bheda. Manas Sukha Bheda also is Bheda. So Bheda Avisheshat. In Bheda there is no difference. Therefore, Atma equally, Sukha can equally be the attribute of something else like Manas. I am Asha. See, the thing is, Vedanta is thinking for them. See, you are saying all of this, but you are not, in fact, given a thought to all the aspects of what you are saying. When you say something here, you don't realize you are contradicting what you say elsewhere. When you say a given thing, you do not realize that you are saying something impossible. Therefore, this is the mananam. The process is how the statements of, because those things create doubts or confusion in our mind. Because Vaisheshika says this. He is also a recognized thinker. And when Vedanta says this, they seem to contradict each other. Then which one is right? Therefore, it becomes necessary to subject to scrutiny the views of other thinkers to show what is the dosha or the defect in those thinking, in that thinking, how therefore their views or conclusions are not tenable. Sarvatmana vibhutvangikarat yat shaira avachedena atma sukhadav jayante. Because Atma is Vibhu, all pervasive, all Atmas are Vibhu, all Atmas are all pervasive. Yet Shri Avachedana Atma is so Atma obtaining in this body or associated with this body, because Atma is all pervasive, still is somehow in this body, Atma is different, Atma connected with that body is different, Atma connected with different bodies are different. So imagine that Atma associated with this body experiences Sukha. But here when I say this body, since all Atmas are all pervasive, therefore, theoretically, all Atmas are here. How do you establish a given Atma is only associated with one body? Because all Atmas are equally present. When Sukham takes place, how do you determine that Sukha has taken place only in Atma, which is limited by this body, connected with this body, and not other Atmas are also present? Asiva Atmana, I am Sukha iti nanyasya. This Sukha, given experience Sukha, is only a dharma of this Atma alone and not of any other Atma. What is the determining factor? When all Atmas are present in one place and Sukha has no connection with Atma, then how do you establish that? This Sukha belongs to one of the countless Atmas who are here. How do you establish that? Iti niyantum na shakyate. You cannot establish that. But na manas sanyoga bhedaha niyamakaha. So, say there is also bheda in some manas sanyoga, atma manas sanyoga. Atma and mana also is sanyoga. That sanyoga is different because minds are different. Manasepi sarvatma sambandhasya avisheshat. But that all Atmas are here. So all Atmas can have associated with one mana which is here. So again, which Atma has sanyoga or connection or with this mana? All manas, one manas can have connection with all the Atmas, sanyoga. So to establish that this Atma has experienced Sukha, the Sukha experience of this Atma is only this Atma's or not other Atma, that self you can't. So our experience, my happiness is different from yours, that's an experience. But that experience you cannot explain when you have this kind of strange, assumptions about Atma and things like that. Napi adrushtabhedo niyamakaha. So no, every Atma is own adrushta. And that determines which Atma Manas Sanyoga is there. That determines which Atma Sukha Sanyoga is there, suppose. Tasya adhyapi Atma Dharmatva Siddhe. Here we are discussing Atma Dharmatvam. That Atma has many dharmas, of which Adrushta also is one of them. So when the Dharmatvam, being the attribute of Atma, Sukha, etc., being attribute of Atma is not yet established. It's not established. Given Adrushta also is an attribute of Atma, also is not established. So how Adrushta or Karma also can become the determining factor? Adrushta hetu prayatna. Adrushta is the karma phala. What brings about? Prayatna karma brings about. Manas, but the prayatna also can take place only when there is Atma, Manas Sanyoga, then prayatna can manifest. That also prayatna is connected with all the Atmas who are present here. Therefore, adrushtasyapi na asmaya vishesa siddhi. Therefore, a given adrushta, a given karmaphala can only be associated with one Atma when all Atmas are present. So how do you establish the association of adrushta or karma with one Atma? Yatra kutrabi jayamanam sukhadi yasya kasyabi kasmad nasyat. So sukha arises somewhere. Why should it not belong to anybody, any Atma? Tatha manasa kriyavatvat murtatvat. So mind is an active entity. It is an atomic entity. And therefore, sukhadi desha abhyavicharat. And therefore, manasa abhyavicharat. Mind is present where the sukha etc. is present. Tasyeva kasmat dharma sukhadaya nasyuhu. If according to you, sukhadi can be dharma atma, sukha etc. is equally associated with mind, because mind also is present. Why not sukha and others are attribute of mind? Because same condition exists with the mind also. So therefore there is no nigamanam, no niyamakam. You cannot in fact establish that sukha belongs to this atma and not other atma, or sukha belongs to atma and not to mind. That niyamak also is not there. Then we proceed to the verse 56. Yadapi vaisheshikai jnanasya jnanantara vedyatvam ishyate. Now Vaisheshikas, Naiyayikas explain how knowledge takes place. Okay, epistemology, how knowledge takes place. So it seems that knowledge takes place in two stages. The first stage is called Vyavasaya, second stage is called Anuvyavasaya. Ghata Jnanam, when there is the Indriya Vishaya Sannikarsha, that is when the sense organs such as eyes comes in contact with an object such as pot, then Ghata Jnanam takes place, pot cognition takes place. Then they imagine a second stage. Ghata Maham Janami, I know the pot. So pot knowledge is one thing, and I am the knower of pot is the second stage. First, Ghata Jnanam is called Vyavasaya. And Ghata Maham Janami, I know the pot, is called Anuvyavasaya. Anu means that which takes place following. So Vyavasaya that takes place following Vyavasaya is called Anuvyavasaya. And that is how the knowledge of Ghata Maham Janami takes place. Now first is called Vyavasaya, Ghata Jnanam. Is known by the second Anuvyavasaya, then only you say that I know the pot. Pot is there, pot is known, and I know the pot. So knowledge of pot becomes the object of the second knowledge, I know the pot. The Vyavasaya becomes the object of knowledge, Anuvyavasaya, this is what they say. So one Jnanam becomes the object of another Jnanam. So Yadapi Vaisheshikehi Jnanasya Jnanantara Vedyatvam Vishyate. Jnanasya Vyavasayasya Jnanantara Vedyam Anuvayasaya Vedyatvam. That Jnanam of the nature of Vyavasaya becomes Vedya, becomes known by a Jnana of nature Anuvyavasaya is what you Ishyate, that's what you accept. Tadvi Ayuktam, even how can one Jnana leave another Jnanam? Doesn't make sense. Anavastha prasangat, because it will lead to infinite regression, anavastha. So let's read verse 56. Syanmala pariharyatu jnanam che jneyatam vrajet Yugapadva vichotpattihi abhyupetata ishyate. First line, Jnanam che jneyatam vrajet. If Jnanam also becomes Gneyam, Jnanam also is known by another Jnanam. So Vyavasaya becomes known by Anuvyavasaya. One Jnanam also attains the state of being known by other Jnanam. Jnanam Jneyatam Vrajet. Mala apariharya syat. Then Mala parampara. And therefore anavastha dosha cannot be avoided. Infinite regret, one leading to the other. So that is the first statement that the Vedantin makes. Ayamartha, the Tikakara explains. So first is the Vyavasaya Ghata Jnana. Second is Anuvyavasaya, it is Ghatamaham Janami. According to them, Jnanam requires Atma Manas Sanyoga. Atma by itself is unconscious, therefore something has to happen for the consciousness to arise in Atma. And there is Atma Manas Sanyoga. We require Atma Manas Sanyoga for Vyavasaya Ghata Jnanam to take place. Then you require another Atma Manas Sanyoga for the Anuvyavasaya Ghatamaham Jnana, that Jnana will take place. So now two Atma Manas Sanyoga are there. One for arising of the Vyavasaya, other is for Anuvyavasaya. So take us Yena Atma Manas Sanyogena Pratham Jnanam Jayate. Let's say that the mind comes in contact with the Atma, therefore Vyavasaya, the Jnanam of the nature of Vyavasaya arises. Then what about the Anuvyavasaya? That Anyena Sanyogantarena Tad Vishayam Jnanantaram Jayate. Thus Anuvyavasaya is another Jnanam. Jnanantaram is another Jnanam, Anuvyavasaya. Does the Anuvyavasaya requires a different Atmanas Sanyoga, or is the same Atmanas Sanyoga give rise to both Vyavasaya and Anuvyavasaya? Two different Atmanas Sanyoga give rise to these two different knowledges? Kimva Tene Vasya, or one Atmanas Sanyoga give rise to both of them? These are two possible alternatives. So this is a way to examine something. Take into account different alternative explanations that are possible, and show how none of them is possible. If that's what you are, which one is possible? Adya doshamaha. If you imagine that one Atmana Sanyoga A is required for Vyavasaya to take place, Atmana Sanyoga B is required for Anuvyavasaya to take place, then doshamaha, then the logical defect is shown here. So first line of the verse is Jnanam Chet Jnetam Vraje. That's from the verse. Mala apariharya sat tada apariharya jnana mala sat. What is jnana? Jnana parampara. The series of sequence of knowledge, one leading to the other, would be unavoidable. Jnana anavastha syat. There will be infinite regression of the knowledge. One knowledge requires other knowledge to eliminate that. But second requires, if knowledge jnanam jnayatam vrajet, see the statement. If knowledge also has to be known, then second knowledge with which this knowledge is known also has to be known, because knowledge requires to be known. If first knowledge requires to be known by another knowledge, other knowledge also being knowledge also requires to be known by yet another knowledge. There also being knowledge required to know another. That is how you have not yet arrived at the first one, because everything is known, each one has to be known. In which case jnanam cannot take place. The fact that it takes place means anavastha cannot be. The fact that knowledge takes place, anavastha cannot be. Now, Vishaya avabhasa samayadi jnanam na avaseta. So, if you say that Vishaya, this is Ghata Jnanam, Vishaya avabhasa samaye, when Ghata is illumined, that time Anuvavasaya is not there, Ghatamaham Jnana tada. Vishaya swayam avabhasate. Then does the Ghata shine on its own? Jnana adhinatayava, or the Ghata shines as illumined by Jnanam. So you cannot determine when the part is known. Is part known? Does part make itself known? Swayam avabhasate? Or is part illumined by Jnanam? There is no way to determine that. Tadaiva jnanabhane jnanantaram eshtavyam. Therefore, for Ghata to be known, another jnanam has to be accepted. Tasyapi abhane, but then jnana also requires another jnanam to illumine. Therefore, abhane purva jnanasya jnanantara bhasyatva asiddhe. Tad bhanaya jnanantaramiti. So purva jnana requires jnanantaram, uttara jnana requires jnanantaram. Durnirvara anavasthasya. That is how, if one jnanam has to be illumined by another jnanam, if jnanam in general requires to be illumined by another jnanam, then each jnanam needs another jnanam to illumine that. That's how the infinite regression is unavoidable. Going back to verse, Syan mala pariharya. Jnanam jneyatam vrajechet mala apariharya syat. Then there is the word tu. So Tikakar is tu shabda cha artha hai. Cha means other things are also included. I mean, Tena cha prasama jnanotpatti anantaram manasi kriya. Now what happens is atmanas sanyoga. That brings about first jnanotpatti. First jnanam is generated by the atmanas sanyoga. So how does it take place? Tena cha. So prasama jnanotpatti has taken place, vyavasaya jnana has taken place, then anuvyavasaya jnana has to take place. Prasama jnanotpatti anantaram manasi kriya. In mind now and the kriya must happen. Tato vibhaga, the earlier one has to go. Purva sanyoga nasha, the second earlier sanyoga has to go. Sanyogantaram, next sanyoga must come. Tato jnanantaram, then next jnanam comes. First jnanam is gone, next jnanam comes. So therefore, this atmana, one atmana sanyoga that gave us to jnanam A, that sanyoga has to go. A new sanyoga must take place for jnanam B to arise. So that has to go, then this has to associate it, then this has to happen, Iti bahu kshana viramba. If each one takes one kshana, the disassociation of first jnanam, associating with Atma, and then arising of second jnanam, it takes one kshana, then also between the vyavasaya and anuvyavasaya, several moments have already passed. Bahu kshana virambana utpadyamana muttara jnanam. So second jnanam that has taken place after a few moments, how can it illumine the first jnanam? Because they are not together. Katham kuryat? Tasya tadanim abhavat. Because when the first jnanam takes place, vyavasaya, the second one does not take place because it takes its own time to take place. Minuscule the time may be still. Second jnanam is not there. When the first jnanam is there, how can second jnanam illumine the first jnanam? First, anavastha, if jnana requires illumination. Secondly, if both of them are illuminated by a different atmanas yoga, each atmanas yoga needs its own, time. First has to go, second has to come. In which case two jnanam cannot coexist, in which case how can they enjoy the jnana and jnana illuminate relationship? Iti yuktyantaram samucchaya. The chakara means this other yukti also is there. One yukti is anavastha dosha. Second yukti is the two jnanas are in different times and therefore they cannot enjoy the relationship of illuminated. Second yukti. Atha dvitiyam. What is kalpam anudya? So what is the dvitiya kalpa? That same Atmanas, to avoid this difficulty, he said, no. One Atmanas Sanyoga gives rise to both the Vyavasaya and Anuvyavasaya. That's the second kalpa. So, Atha Dvitiyam kalpa Anudya. Anudya means reiterating that. Ati prasangena dushadi. Then why should that thing not illuminate? If two things can take place together, then many other things can also take place together. Lots of things are waiting, lots of gunas are there. So if two gunas can take place simultaneously, why not other fellows also will take place simultaneously? This is how it is. So second line, reiterates that objection or the vikalpa. Yugapat, so both of them yugapat meaning atma manasya yoga or vyavasaya anuvyavasaya yugapat simultaneous. Yugatva vicha utpatti abhyupeta, if you accept that, both the atma manasya yoga take place simultaneously, then also what is the problem? Because ata ishyate, so ishyate the tika has to explain. Abhija anavastha dosha parijihishaya. If you say that the two knowledges take place differently, different atmanasya are required for two knowledge, that anavastha comes. To avoid that, you say no, vyavasaya, anuvyavasaya take place at the same time from same atmanasya yoga. Iti chediti anushajyate means chet you have to add. Yugatpati abhiveda chet. That if this is the situation, this is your position. Anushanga means the chet which was in the first line also should be drawn into this one. Tada ataha asmadeva sanyogat. Ataf, there is a fifth case, from this one only. First sanyoga is a sanyoga which has given us to vyavasaya. Same sanyoga also given us to anuvyavasaya. Yugavat utpatti abhyupeta chet iti Yugavat sannikrishta rupa. Then there are many other things also, many other quality gunas are present in Atma. And so, at the same time, the sense organs also in sense, so that's a ghata jnanam takes place. When the eyes come in contact with ghata. And then vyavasaya and vyavasaya that take place. But ears are in contact with shabda at that time. Each organ is in contact with the corresponding object. If all of them happen simultaneously, then shabda, sparsha, rupa, all of these fellows will take place simultaneously. What determines that this should take place one after the other? One after the other was explained because if vyavasaya, anuvyavasaya is there, or different atmanasya yoga is required. If one atmanasya yoga can create both, then it can create everything. Because all sense organs are in contact with their respective sense objects. Asmadeva sanyogat yugavat sannikrishta rupa rasa gandha shabda sparsha jnanapi tadyaeva utpatti shyatam. So just as chakshusham jnanam is born, so similarly shravanam jnanam, shravanam, sparshanam, all these things happen simultaneously. Tada, then also further. Tada, then samskara is also there in Atma. They will also arise. Samskar, udbodha, sampade, sakaya lavat, tadartha smrutina api utpatti ishyadam. May understand that from previous experiences, the samskara, the impressions are also there in Atma. If one sanyoga can, each one requires a different Atma sanyoga according to them. But if one Atma sanyoga can create more than one thing, it can create all of these also. So samskara also can arise, smriti also will arise. Then you don't know whether it is perception or it is memory. Ishyate. Ishyata means ishyate in the second line. Ataha na jnanasya jnanantara vidyatva kalpana yuktimati iti. Therefore, that one knowledge of vyavasaya is another knowledge, anuvyavasaya, that kalpana. No, when you do kalpana, some yukti must be there. There is no explanation for how this takes place, no yuktimati. Therefore, this is just a kalpana. Now, continuing. Kincha atmana chaitanyam swarupa lakshana utyate. Now, alright, so atma is substance. And it becomes conscious by, so this consciousness now, Atma Chaitanyam, Swarupa Lakshana Uchyate, Tatasa Lakshana. Is it Swarupa, inherent, essential nature of Atma, consciousness, or Tatastha? Or there is incidental? Swarupa, inherent. Tatastha, incidental. For example, Satyam, so you describe a house, what it is, that is called Swarupa Lakshana. Otherwise you say that, which is Devadatta's house, where the crow is sitting, on the roof. But crow is only incidental thing. The next day you could look for a house with crow, you may not find it. So that crow, so therefore identifying house by presence of crow is called Tatastha Lakshana. Identifying house with the description that it has so many floors and this, that and so, it is a Swarupa Lakshana. Swarupa Lakshana is always there, Tatastha Lakshana is incidental. So please tell us when you say consciousness of Atma. There can be two possibilities, Swarupa Lakshanam or Tatastha Lakshanam. Swarupa Lakshanam is inherently always there in Atma. Tatastha Lakshanam is there incidentally. Now, so therefore, what is the nature of this consciousness of Atma? Adye prasivyado gandhadi vat sadatanatvat. With Swarupa Lakshanam, it is always there. When Atma is a heat, is a Swarupa Lakshanam of fire. So where fire is, heat is always there. If consciousness is the essential nature of Atma, then it will always be in Atma. Just as Gandha or the fragrance is the essential nature of the element earth. Wherever earth is, fragrance must be there. Where fragrance is, earth must be there. So also if consciousness is the essential nature of Atma, then where Atma is, consciousness must be there. Sadatanatvat. Why? Tasya Swarupa Anatareka, just as fragrance is non-separate from the Swarupa of earth, so also consciousness will become the non-separate from Atma, if it is Swarupam. Anitya Jnana Atma. Then they say, but Atma is Anitya Jnana. Atma is Anitya Jnanavan. Because the Jnanam in the Atma becomes manifest only when Atma is Sanyoga Vidyamana. Therefore, Atma is Anitya Jnana. Anitya Jnanavan means Atma is possessed of the incidental consciousness. Consciousness, not the inherent nature of Atma. So when you say that Jnanam in Atma is incidental, you are saying that Jnanam cannot be Swarupa Lakshanam, cannot be the inherent nature of Atma. Alright, then Tatastha Lakshanam. Dvitiyetu Swarupa Lakshanam Anyat Anatma Sadhanam Vaktavyam. So now, either Swarupa Lakshanam or Tatastha Lakshanam. What is Tatastha Lakshanam? Swarupa Lakshanam Anyat. Different from Swarupa Lakshanam. Now, Atma is incidental. Then, Anyat Anatma. Then, what is the relationship between Atma and consciousness and Anatma and consciousness? What is the difference? If Atma possesses consciousness, then what is the difference between the Swarupa Lakshana, Anatma and Atma, that the conscious is different? See, Dvitiyedu, Swarupa Lakshanam, Anyat Anatma Asadhana Vaktavyam. This is Anatma, doesn't have consciousness. So there is also that, and then Atma also doesn't have consciousness. So what is now the relation of consciousness with Atma and consciousness with Anatma, because both are by nature unconscious? So you have to explain the Atma and consciousness, the relation in a different way from this fellow is also unconscious. Tacha Chetanatiktam na kimapi sambhavitamasti. Therefore, how can you explain that Lakshanam, which is different from Chetana? Chetana is not Swarupa, then Chetana is Achetanam. Either Chetanam is Chetanam or Achetanam. Then how can you explain that? Ataha dehadi jada vilaksham atmanam abhivagachyata. They want Atma to be different from Deha, etc. because Deha is jada. Atma is not conscious also. So in what ways Deha jada and not possessed of consciousness? And Atma also is not possessed of consciousness, is not the Swarupa Lakshana. So what's the difference between Atma not possessing consciousness and Dehadi not possessing consciousness? What's the difference between them? So, if Atma can be conscious, even though by nature unconscious can become conscious, why not Dehadi by nature unconscious also can become conscious? But you want Dehadi, Jada Vilakshanam, Atma Vivagachyata. They want Atma to be unconscious. But different from Deha, etc., they are unconscious, So many things they want. Sada Nirvishesha Chidrupa. In that case, you to say that Atma is different from Jada, Dehadi, and they are the unconscious, and Atma is different. Then only we say that Atma has to be conscious. If Atma is unconscious, Deha is unconscious. In what way do you say unconscious of Atma is different, unconscious of Deha? So if Atma is to be different from Deha, then Deha are unconscious. Atma has to be conscious, then only you can say it is separate from Deha. Dehadi jada vilakshanam atman abhivagachyata. You who considers Atma as different from Dehadi, you call Dehadi jada. And Atma is different from that. The different from jada is only Chetana. Different from jada is Chetanam. So Atma has to be Chetanam, if it has to be different from jada. Then Sada Nirvishesha Chidrupa Kutastha. Then Atma has to be, these are all other things so they are Vishishta, they are Chetana, Dehadi, so Atma is different from them, therefore it has to be Nirvishesha. Achetana, Atma has to be Chetana. Vikari, Nirvikara. For Atma to be different from Dehadi, it must possess the qualities or attributes or nature totally distinct from them. So for accepting Atma as different from Dehadi, you accept Atma as what? Sada Nirvishesha Chidrupaha. Dehadi all possess Vishesha, so Atma must be Nirvishesha. Dehadis are all unconscious, Atma must be Chidrupaha. Dehadis are all changing, Atma must be Kutastha. So for you to say that Atma is different from Dehadi, the only thing that can make difference between them is that nature can make the difference. So Atma has to be different in nature. So it has to be Nirvikara, Chidrupa, and then Nirvishesha. For you to say that Atma is different from Dehadi, Anyatha, Vikarina, Anityatva Niyamat. Otherwise, if Atma is not Vikara, then Anitya. Bandha moksha, then what happens is, right now Atma is that is bound. But Atma is Anitya, so when moksha takes place, some other Atma is there. You have to connect the Bandha and moksha, that the one who was bound is the one who must be liberated. That much continuity must be there. If Atma is Vikari, then it is also Anitya. In that case, the Atma that is bound is not there when the Atma's liberation comes. Dussampadamiti. Therefore, Bandha Moksha Vyavastha cannot take place. Atma is Anitya, then Bandha. That one Atma is bound, same Atma is liberated. That Vyavastha, that rule cannot be. And therefore, Dussampadam, all of this is illogical, incongruent, viparitya. So, keeping all of this in mind, otherwise we don't know what the next verse is answering. Next verse apparently is addressing this thing that has already been discussed here. So, next verse is 57. Anavasthantaratvacha bandho natmani vidyate na shuddhischapya sangatvad asango hi iti cha shrutehe. Anavasthantaratvacha. Avasthavatvam, anavasthavatvam. So see Tika, nasti avasthan. An is the negative particle. Avasthantaratvam, anavasthantaratvam. Nasti avasthantaram, yasya anavastha. Avasthantaram is anyavastha. The different second avastha, another avastha is called avasthantara. Like dehan, different dehantara. Another deha, anya deha, dehantara. So avasthantara means anyavastha. The one, so na anyavastha, the one that does not possess another avastha is called nantara avastha. Nasti avanta avasthantaram is anavasthantara. So Atma is that which is anavasthantara, meaning does not possess another avastha. Because it has to be nitya. Tasya bhava anavasthantaratvam tasmat anavasthantaratvat. So that's the hetu. Because Atma enjoys the state of anavasthantaratvam. Where anavasthantaratvam means that Atma is not subject to avasthantara, meaning a transformation or change, meaning Atma is changeless. That's what it means. For whom Atma is, so you would add Atmana anavasthantaratvat. So that is the argument. Meaning what? Kutas, equal to simple written, Kutas tattva. But Kutas means changeless. Changeless means change doesn't take place. Change means avasthantara. Curd, milk becoming curd is called change, vikara, transformation. That's avasthantara. And for Atma to be nitya, cannot have avasthantara, cannot change, there cannot be change of avastha, therefore Atmana anavasthantaratvat or kutastatvat. Na Atmani bandha vidyate, there cannot be bandha or bondage in something that is changeless. Tathacha Atmana kutastatvat. See, if you say that consciousness is connected with Atma, then consciousness has to be different from unconscious. Conscious has to be nitya, kutastha, nirvishesha. So then Atma has to be kutastha, nitya, nirvishesha, changeless. If that is the nature of Atma, then tasmin Atmani bandha, how can there be bondage in an Atma that is changeless, nirvishesha? Vishesh gunavatva lakshana, because bondage is a specific state of Atma. Liberation is a specific state of Atma. Now the states cannot be in Atma. In that case, bondage, liberation also cannot be in Atma because they are two different states. So Vishesh gunavatva lakshana. So Atma possessed of the guna of being bound. Then Atma becomes possessed of guna of being liberated. Then only bondage and bandha moksha is possible. But that cannot be, because being bound also is a guna, and that requires also vikara. But Atma is nirvikara, therefore cannot possess the guna of being bound. Chakarat then nivritti rupo moksha vina vidyate. If bondage cannot be established, how can there be moksha? So you talk of bandha and moksha of the Atma, but what is bandha? Who is bound? Atma, being what he is, does not lend himself to bondage, then where is the question of liberation of Atma? Tasmat nitya shuddheva Atma idyatra pramanam vadanna. Therefore, what are you talking about? So Vedanta is Atma is nitya shuddha. Tasmat, therefore, a shuddhi such as bondage cannot be an Atma. A shuddhi such as vikara cannot be an Atma. Therefore, Atma nirvikara, nirvishaya means nitya shuddha. Tasmat nitya shuddheva Atma iti atra pramanam. So Vedanta is Atma is nitya shuddha. How do you say? Upanishad says that. So pramanam is the Upanishad. Parakalpana nirakarana phalama. So parakalpana nirakarana. There is bondage in Atma and there is liberation in Atma. That kalpana has been refuted by saying bondage is an attribute of Atma which cannot be in Atma, it is free from attribute. So says, next line, na shuddhischapi asangatvat. Na shuddhi. In Atma, ashuddhi also cannot be. Svagata dharma krita bandha bhavat. Anya samsara ashuddhi abhinasti. If bondage cannot be inherent nature of Atma, inherently being Atma, so Atma cannot be bound by its own nature because Atma is nirvishesha. But then Atma can be bound by association with something else. I may be Shuddha, all right. Ganges water is pure, but then can become impure when it comes in contact with some impure things. So Atma can be, pure, but can become impure in association with something else. Svagata dharma krita bandha bhavata. If bondage, svagata means inherently, bondage cannot inherently in Atma because Atma is nirvishesha. Anya samsarga krita. Why not that Atma can become bound by coming in contact with Prakriti or something like that? Tadapi nasti. That Ashuddhi also cannot be. Inherent Ashuddhi is not there. Ashuddhi cannot be by association with something else because asangatvat, Atma is asanga, unconnected, unassociated with anything therefore, is not subject to being influenced, impacted, tainted. Ityartha. Asango iti shuddhe. This is Vedantin says that na shuddhischapi asangatvat, because Atma is asanga, asangoyam purusha, ashuddhi also cannot be in Atma. Itasya na atmana parmatako bandha. Therefore, real bondage cannot be in Atma. Vedanta is lying in trouble himself, but anyway, they talk of real bondage in Atma and real liberation. Real bondage can be there if bondage is inherent in Atma or comes because of contact with something else. Inherently also cannot be, nor can there be anything with the context, so you can't explain bondage of Atma. And now they have a liberation also. But then for another reason also we say, the real parma seko bandha, the real bondage cannot be in Atma. Why is it so? Verse 58 says, Sukshmika gocharebhyascha nalipyata iti shrutehe evam tarhi na mokshosti bandha bhavat kathanchana. Sukshma eka agocharebhya. Fifth case is a hetu. Three hetus are given in this one word. Sukshmatvat, ekatvat, agocharatvat. So, three hetus are given in one word. This is plural. Sukshma eka agocharebhya. Sukshmatvat, ekatvat, agocharatvat. So Tika says, because Atma is Sukshma, because Atma is Eka, because Atma is Agochara. Therefore, and Nalipyate also, therefore there cannot be real bondage in Atma. Nalipyate, Shruti also says Atma does not get tainted. So there cannot be real bondage in Atma. So you are claiming that Atma is bound and my Atma becomes liberated. That bondage cannot be explained in the primary sense. Then how do you explain that with that next question? Because Vedanta also accepts bondage and liberation. To explain what kind of bandha and moksha Vedanta then accepts. The bandha moksha except other people are dismissed. As you say it's not possible. Which way it is possible? And we will tell you how it is possible. Sukshmatvam manova agamyatvam atma is sukshma. Cannot be described in words, cannot be objectified by the mind. Very subtle, subtler than subtlest. Ekatvam advitiyatvam atma is, so there is no second thing also to taint it. It is sukshma, therefore, beyond the reach of mind and beyond the reach of words, beyond reach of anything ever, nothing can reach Atma. So these things cannot reach Atma, cannot influence Atma, cannot taint Atma. Ekatvam. If second thing is there, then second thing can affect one thing. If it's only one and non-dual, there is no second thing to affect it also. First of all, it's not attainable, not achievable, not influenceable. Secondly, there is nothing else to influence it. Agocharatvam, nirvisheshatvam is devoid of all vishesha. Etebhya hetubhya so sukshmaika gocharebhya. Because of all the hetus, all these three reasons, Nitya Shuddha Atma. Atma is Nitya Shuddha, meaning what? Not only Shuddha by itself, but not available for Ashuddhi. It cannot be tainted. So one thing can be Shuddha, but can be made Ashuddha. But Atma is Nitya Shuddha, not only it is Shuddha by nature, it is beyond the reach of any Ashuddhi. No Ashuddhi can ever reach it. So it always remains as Shuddha. Nitya Srivada Nalipyate Loka Dukkhena Bahya from Kathopanishad. Surya Yatha Lokasya Chakshuhu Nalipyate Chakshusher Bahya Doshahi Ikastatha Sarabhutantaratma Nalipyate Loka Dukkhena Bahya. Kathopanishad gives an example of sun. Just as sun, even though seeing through his eyes is not tainted by the various dosha, or defects or blemishes, eyes will become. If I see something which is impure, then I get sin or papa. Surya will not. Similarly also, ekastatha, even though sarvabhutantaratma, the self is the self of all the beings and still does not get tainted by the sukha dukkha which take place in the beings. And then, Yatha sargadam sokshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatra avastitode tathatma nopalipyate. 13th chapter. Just as akasha is everywhere, but because it is sukshma, subtle, cannot be tainted. So also the Atma is present all the entire body and cannot be tainted by the defects or the vikara of the body. Iti Bhagavad-vachanam chatra udahartavyam. For nalipyate iti shruti and Bhagavad-vachan also is nalipyate iti. Therefore, bandha na paramatika. Atma cannot be bound in a primary sense because Atma is of such a nature that bondage cannot be associated with Atma. Bondage cannot reach, cannot taint. This other shloka up to this is Vedantin statement. Then what? What is the second one? Evam tarena mokshosti bandha bhavat kasanchana. So evam, in this manner, Atmana nitya shuddha buddha mukta swatvam sadhayata Vedantina. So Vedantin who, in this manner, is establishing the nature of Atma as Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, ever pure, ever liberated, ever, eternal. So that is what you are establishing as the nature of Atma. Atma Upadesha. Then, if Atma is already like this, there is no impurity in Atma, no bondage in Atma, then the question of liberation in Atma. And the only purpose Upanishads have is to in fact teach us how to get liberated. So moksha, upadesha is the only intent that the Upanishads have. But if there is no bandha, then where is the question of moksha? What are the Upanishads doing? Then they become redundant. Therefore, Atma-udesha Shastra Anarthakyam, redundancy, with Shastra Upanishad, which is what? Atma-upadesha, the Shastra which is delineating, expounding the nature of Atma, and the liberation of Atma becomes redundant if there is no bondage in Atma. Akshipandi Purvadina. Akshipandi Purvadina. So Purvadina, which case is it? Huh? And which vachana is there? Huh? Purvadina Akshipante. This is very clear. Purvadina is in plural, he said. Purvapakshis Akshipante. They now also Akshipante, negate you, accuse you. That you fellows don't accept real bondage in Atma, then how can there be liberation? There is no liberation in Atma. What's the purpose of Upanishad which teach liberation of Atma? So second line becomes the Purvapaksha, Evam Tarhi. Tarhi must always go with Yadi. Yada tada yadi tarhi, there is no Yadi. So Yadi iti adhyaharyam. Yadi, in case if, tarhi then. Evam, nitya shuddha. Evam tarhi. Evam means what? Nitya shuddha. In this manner, if according to you, Atma is nitya shuddha, tarhi, kathanchana, also from the verse, kena rupena, bandha bhavat. In no way can you explain the bondage of Atma as you yourself argued. Vedantin, the way you argued so far, you yourself have established that there cannot be bondage of Atma in any way. Then moksha vinasti, then we say that there cannot be moksha also. Why? Bandha purvakatvad mokshasya. That is called moksha or liberation, that is preceded by bondage, otherwise how can there be liberation? You can be untied provided you are tied. If you are not tied, the question of untying. Tadabhave abhavat. If bondage is not there, liberation also cannot be. If moksha is not there, then what is the Upanishad doing here? Then Shastra is anarthakya, it becomes redundant. So Vedantin is left to give this explanation. We will continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namah. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.